And we're back. Welcome to the Print Your Games podcast, the podcast for people who make their own toys. I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param. I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres.
Kristen. I have to sympathize with you today.
Oh,
I have been wrestling my FDM printer because I was preparing for this episode and I needed to print many things in FDM. And I was like, I hadn't touched that Neptune in a little bit.
yeah.
And I had like 3 failed prints in a row, and
Ooh.
it was all my fault. This turns out that by letting the Neptune sit for so long without printing on it, I was not doing a good stewardship, and so this I'm don't know if it needed to warm up or the springs just needed to let themselves out a little bit, but I knew it would probably have a problem. So while it was cold, I think this is where I made the mistake. I didn't
Okay.
warm it up then. I didn't warm my bed up before I leveled. I
Oh,
leveled the bed, and then I was like, aha, I leveled the bed. I am smart, responsible printer person. Look at me work this piece of paper. I can work this piece of paper like the best of them. And then I loaded up my file for a thing I'm going to show off a little later on topic, but this 1-page rules measuring
thing.
stick.
Okay.
And I ran off. And then I was just laying in bed watching anime. Specifically, I was watching My Dress Up Darling. If you haven't checked out My Dress Up Darling, it's one of the best animes going this year, and it's
What
awesome.
genre is it?
It is romantic comedy with a healthy dose of fan service.
Okay.
But also a strange amount of wholesomeness.
Okay.
It is the anime of the season. But
Fair enough.
then I glance over at my printer and spaghetti everywhere. It's like, oh no, not spaghetti. And I get up and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, I knew I leveled it. So it's leveling is not the problem. You know, Kristen, leveling can't be the problem if I just leveled it. So I get out my alcohol swab because it's like, hey, it has been a while since I've used this printer. Let me clean.
Even though we were told the alcohol swab would do damage.
I don't use glass.
Okay.
I use a plastic sheet that doesn't have a protective layer. It's not going to hurt with the alcohol.
Well, I do use a glass one, so I don't anymore.
You should use Windex.
Right.
So I cleaned it up with my alcohol swab, and I ran the print again. Spaghetti!
Yikes!
At this point, I'm getting a little concerned because it had done the thing I hate, where all the plastic had gooped up around the nozzle, and I had to reach in there with my little snips and like gently scrape the nozzle clean and get everything off. And I made sure that the nozzle wasn't clogged. And I'm curious, so I just checked the level again, and it's like off by a centimeter. Nothing was sticking to the bed because it was trying to print like a centimeter in midair.
Yikes.
And so I had to re-level it twice more because it was so far off level that by the time I leveled one corner and got all the way around to all 5 level points, I had to go back to the first corner and level it again in order to get it anywhere close to actually level again. And now I double, triple checked it and ran it off, and finally it's just printing like a dream. Nothing wrong. I got 4 successful prints in a row right off of it. No troubles. But I was worried. I was like, no, did we tick off FDM printers with our last episode? Will they never trust me to work again?
Well, you are not alone, though, in conquering your demon, because I also got my FDM printer sorted out. However, it was not my fault.
Oh, no.
And it wasn't the printer's fault this time.
Okay.
It was my filament.
Oh,
I swapped my filament after trying everything, and I was just beating my head over and over. You saw how many fails I had.
Right.
So whatever that was with that second thing, because this is weird too. I'm not going to bag on Overture. I was an Overture filament, but my first buy from Overture was such a good purchase, and I got such clean prints with it. They're just shiny, white, creamy, beautiful prints, and the really low striations and stuff. And so I thought, okay, cool, I'll buy 2. Right. And for some reason, the first roll was really spotty, but I got my prints more or less. I had that one big balcony fail, but that might have been because I loaded things too much, right? I had stuff all the way out to edge, and now I have learned that is dangerous. But that second roll, it had the devil in it. Like, it was bad. um, like,
I wanted to print a tree. Why are all these pentagrams showing up?
right? Like, I could not even get a raft
Oh no.
done before that thing failed every freaking job. And like, part of me thinks I should still try to return it to Amazon or wherever I got it from, because it's barely used and it was just so bad. But I don't know. I might hang on to it. I'm kind of nonplussed. But yeah, the new filament's working like a dream. Got a job perfectly clean off of it already, and another one started.
What's the new one?
So. It's just the Amazon generic brand, actually. There was a sale on it, and you know me, bargain hound, so I dove on it. And they actually have bright green and okay, this is a long story, but you're getting the whole thing. You know the Kraken tiles, the Hellscapes? There's a Hellscape set, which I don't know if you've really looked at those Hellscape sets, but they actually have a bunch of like tuberous vines or like veins or something on it, but it's kind of not clear what they are. You could push them in a lot of ways with their paint scheme. And for my snacks, I've been trying to build up a collection of terrain that is very jungly. And so even though it's hell themed, if I painted it up with those vines being more like planty, I think it'll kind of give this jungle vibe. And so I'm going to experiment with that. But I got some bright green FDM to test, just because I know sometimes if you have that undertone, it comes through, you know, in little spots in your paint up. And since this is terrain, these are not going to be like, you know, high quality paint jobs. They're going to be, you know,
dry brush special.
Yep, get it done and get it on the table. And so I figure, you know, any twinge of bleed through that color, or if the edges, because those Kraken tiles, I really like how slick it's just the slot join thing.
Yeah.
But if they were green, it would kind of help them blend a little bit to the eye.
Right.
I find that sometimes like a black or a white is just so stark, and you either have to go in and paint it and try to make it less obtrusive. But I'm hoping that I can save a little time with just kind of going with that kind of jungle green base. We'll see how it looks though.
Nice. I wish you luck with this, Kristen. I am currently very loyal to Hatchbox, and only because it was the filament Tom Tolis told me to use. Tom from Fat Dragon Games, he's a friend and one of the foremost experts in 3D printing, especially filament printing. So I was like, Hatchbox, okay, sure, I'm going to buy Hatchbox, and I have been very happy with it. It is a little bit on the, it's not expensive, but it is never cheap, if that makes sense. Like 20 to 24 per kilogram.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah, so it's not expensive, but it's never cheap.
Right.
And like, but I've been very happy with it, and I like it, but I kind of want some of the nice, pretty filament, especially for some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, because I've been using it exclusively in gray because I paint all my stuff. I don't leave bare 3D prints, because so far it's just mostly been like, you know, terrain and characters and things like that. And even the things that I have printed, like tokens and movement trays and stuff, I'm going to paint those too. But now I'm looking at cool crystal dragons and a lot of this cool stuff that we'll be talking today with today's episode. We're going to be talking about gaming accessories that you can 3D print. And those would really benefit from some flashy looking filament that I'm not going to prime over. And
right.
So I kind of want to get some pretty sparkly stuff. You know, I want my dragon to shine.
Yeah, I find I love the rainbow shimmering stuff, but like I want one that shifts faster, I think, or because you have to print really big things to get the rotation to go. I don't have those shields near me, I don't think. But they only banded with 3 colors by the end of the whole print, and they're barely like 2 colors on the opposite ends, and you kind of have this one really dominant color because they're so small. And I even did like, I want to say like 25 on the tray. So you need something big to get it to band on a lot of those. So if you find one that rotates colors fast,
I know of one that rotates colors based on the direction the nozzle is moving. So it doesn't do like the rainbow shift up the print as it prints. It's like as the nozzle moves one direction, one color's more visible than the other. And as it moves in the other direction, the other color. So like it does a nice rotational shift.
And it sets the pigment that way forever. Okay, that's interesting.
I could not come up with a name of it, but 3D Printing Nerd did a whole video about it last month, and I was like, ooh, that looks really nice.
Interesting.
And we do have a little bit of 3D printing news before we jump into the main topic.
Oh?
Yes. A new printer has snuck onto the block.
You mean other than the Cobra and the M3?
But wait,
or something
there's
else?
more?
Oh, there's more. Okay, let's go.
So Anycubic has thrown down the gauntlet that the Jupiter will not stand unchallenged. Yes, and I'm currently pulling up the page just so that I can have it. It is the Anycubic Photon M3 Max.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
So the M3 looks like it's a whole line, right, of different sizes.
Right.
Okay.
And so the Max lives up to its name. It has almost identical build volume to the Jupiter. It also has a continuous resin system because when you start printing at this size, to be specific, it is 13.1 inch diagonal screen. With actual dimensions, it is 300 by 298 millimeters by 164 millimeters.
It's a big boy.
It is a big old print. This is a you can print a helmet on it printer. This is bigger than a bread box. Again, a lot of my same feelings that I have with the Jupiter apply here, that this might be too big for your average use, but boy, when you need it, it is definitely going to come in handy.
Sure.
And it has the extended resin system because when you're printing this big, you are going to need absolutely to have some form of filling it up beyond one bottle, because some of the prints that you would pull off a printer this big would chug an entire 1,000 milliliter bottle and then some, easy.
Right. Yeah, that's big. What's that external tank's capacity? Does it say?
Another bottle.
Oh.
So how it works with this one, instead of the dog dish solution that and that's not an insult to Elegoo, but it is literally, I've seen dog dishes that work the same way, where you screw a 2-liter bottle into the watering bowl and it just drips the water down. Yep. That's an elegant solution for it. But what this one does is actually has a pump that pumps resin out of the bottle that you screw to the back behind the printer. And it has a sensor that determines if it needs more resin and will slowly add resin from the reservoir bottle to top the tank up while it's doing a print. So it's a little bit more elegant of a solution. One, a lot less prone to messes, because the problem with the Elegoo version is that it can be a big mess to unscrew that bottle because it's upside down. The goo is going to come out of the bottom of it, and to get it unscrewed once you've committed a bottle, it has a little plunger thing to make that a little bit easier, but still it's a special cap. It makes me nervous. Whereas this one, the bottle is never upside down, but it is an electronic system, so that can fail. Like
I was about to say, it sounds like also another part that's gonna break. And given my history, love you, Anycubic, but given my history with parts with Anycubics,
I've had mostly good luck, but then, man, this last year it's been a bit. It has been a bit. It is a 7K printer, so fairly good display. So it's a little bit sharper than its competition. And the other thing that it's bringing to the table is $1,099 price tag, and that's not a promotional price. So it's got $300 cheaper than a Jupiter.
So it has higher resolution, better draw system, and is coming in cheaper.
Yep. That is a lot to bring to the table.
Yeah. My nephew was actually just asking me about this last night. I don't know if he was asking about the Max though, and I was like, well, I looked at the specs on their smaller M3, and it looked like it was still pretty good.
Right. I mean, I like the Mega is the same as the Saturn, and that is probably a good printer for most people to settle on as their main driver. Like, I love my Saturn to pieces, and that is a good main printer to have. Maybe not your best first printer, though. Sure. as the community is getting more and more established, I am lessening my hardline stance on that. But yeah, I still think your first printer might want to be like a Mars or a Photon or Creality.
Well, and I think that does matter also, like what you're using it for, right? Like what we're going to talk about tonight. I think smaller printers would be pretty good for most of it.
I think that what we're going to talk for me, we're going to talk about accessories. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it. So for me, accessories, I think that FDM is my main jam there.
Sure. The bigger stuff for that, you're gonna be doing that way anyway. So we're probably talking larger print beds, generally speaking.
Yeah. So, like, for instance, I would appreciate having this printer if I was going to do some accessories in resin, because one of the things I printed for tonight's episode is I went and got one of the official one-page rules measuring tools that for their game, but you can get these for just about any war game. There's lots of these around. And I went to print it, and it would not fit flat. I wanted to print it flat so that it would be dimensionally accurate. Because it's literally the measuring tool for the game. If this has to be accurate,
right.
And I put it, and it just would not print on my Saturn. It was just a little bit off on each side, and there was no way I could get it like diagonally. Like I was going to have to like tilt it up in the air and support all that backside, and it would have been like a 14.5-hour print. And I'm not doing that. No. So I went over, slapped up my FDM printer, and had it a couple hours later.
Sure.
But I would have printed on this the new M3 Max. Absolutely would have printed.
I'm wondering how accurate the like Resin Warp versus FDM would be with the measuring thing. That would just spook me with just resin in general. But you're saying if you laid it edge to edge on the plate,
right? I tried to just slap it flat on the plate, and would not take.
But if it's flat on the plate, you might have a fail. That's what caused my fail we were talking about earlier before we started today.
A fail?
Yeah, yes, I had a resin fail for the first time in a long time.
What happened?
Well, so we're talking about accessories and things, and one of the things I think that is underrated about 3D printing is providing good objective markers. Objective markers, depending on the mission in your skirmish or your war game scenarios, oftentimes are like a dice, or someone's like, well, we'll pick this tree, and they put like the same, it's not distinguished. But with just a little bit of 3D printing, you could get some really cool stuff. Right. And I really wanted to have this thing to show off today, because I found it is a tribe. I think I sent you a link for it. It's 3D hexes.
That link did not open because of the problem with
my mini factory.
Yeah, my mini factory is having some trouble today.
Well, they are a little tribe that does some scenic stuff. I want to say it's like $8. But the crazy thing about it is each one's like a pretty good theme set. And of course, this month, which drew me in finally, was a new dwarf set. And I'm doing those big dwarven runes for my RPG game. And I also noticed, though, that almost every single set they released has like weird MacGuffins, like little like jewel crystal things and whatever. And one of the ones,
Admiral Apocalypse, that you're talking about?
No, that's a different one. That's a different one. But I definitely will be getting back to that in a bit. I think it like has a very general looking link, because I think I was showing their welcome package.
Because not loading for me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Do you know their name?
3D hexes.
Okay.
I believe it's what it's called. But they are like I said, they do scatter mostly, but there's just so many things, and their welcome package is insane. Like, so for $8 you're getting whatever the monthly theme is. Next month's, I think, is like kind of a hellscapey thing, maybe. But no, wait. Anyway, they have really cool stuff. The current one's dwarves. I'm totally into it, of course. Yes, so there's the dwarf stuff. But you see there that there's like these weird like dragon fountain things that are spewing magma and stuff. And I'm like, how cool would that be to like be your objective? You need to go like shut down the volcano pump or whatever to destroy their installation. That's rad, right? Like super flavorful and super cheap pickup, and you get that, and then their welcome package is just massive. And so like I was going nuts about using it for objective marker buys. But
yeah, I'm really impressed with it. That's some really nice dwarf terrain, and it's too easy to make boring dwarf terrain. As all we need is walls with hexagonal corners and
yep.
lots of runes and beards on everything. Everything's a hammer beard.
I
We
mean,
tie beards in our hammers.
I have nothing against Art Deco hammer beards, but you can do more.
Yep.
And it's clear
I'm glad you got that right. That dwarves are Art Deco.
Yes, elves are Art Nouveau, and dwarves are Art Deco. That's the rule, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good set. And then I don't know if you have their welcome pack around, but that is super diverse. It's got a ton of stuff. And like I said, tons of objective marker-y stuff. I know we're going to be talking about more specific game aids to specific games, and I found, spoiler, another specific game that I love, but and I had no idea how much 3D support it had. Here in a second, but yeah. I guess while I'm on the subject of tribes, I could throw out that other one if you want.
Sure. What's the other tribe?
Well, so I mentioned kind of raving actually about decorative bases and how sometimes they frustrate me.
Right.
But that's when I'm trying to use them as a base for a standardized army, or trying to get a specific look, or trying to put something on a representative size for like an RPG, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I need some objective markers, some of the decorative bases without the minis are actually amazing for objective markers. And that's actually why I was throwing out Admiral Apocalypse.
Oh, is this the one you're talking about?
There's just tons of them. There's little like portals and stuff, but like any number of objective markers, like teleporters, big rune carved skulls. There's like hell pyramids. They just have so much. And again, super economical. I believe you can get just their scatter or just their bases, or you can get both. And I thought that was really cool that they made that customizable, to people who want whatever. So
yeah, this will definitely work. And if you're not going to while we're on the topic of objective markers, first Titan Forge, for their blood fields and their Grid Wars campaign, they have some really great objective markers that they put out for their own games. And the reason I like that is, at least for the fantasy ones, it's like a World of Warcraft objective marker. Like, it's a banner on a little base that you can paint up in like one side in one team's colors and the other side in the other team's colors, and it's really cool. And it's very obvious that's the objective. And when you just search not My Mini Factory, but if you just search for objective markers on Thingiverse, you get so many great choices. Like, you can get custom ones for your whatever popular faction or theme. Like, if you want a dwarf set, they've got dwarves. If you want space engineers or Adeptus Mechanicus, they've got that. And then you've got like themed ones that look really cool, that for like just generic fantasy stuff or sci-fi stuff, where it's like Skull Angel or Abandoned Backpack or really curious obelisks. Some of my favorites include Prisoner Tied to a Stake and Fallen Over Horse with messenger bag attached to it, so it's more thematic.
Yeah,
like for that. A lot of games, it's important to know what number the objective is, so a lot of these are numbered too, so that also helps. And if you're playing a popular game, I know that like for One Page Rules, I just printed off a set of their official ones just for this episode. And I forgot them. They're still sitting on the printer. My bad. And they're numbered. And then you got really cool ones that I like, that is just like random mixes of barrels and or bags or treasure chests with numbers attached to them. That this is a particular set from Sable Badger that's just great. And like many of the gaming accessories, so there's so many fantastic gaming accessories that you can get for your games. My Mini Factory has a bunch, but Thingiverse seems to be the place to go for this sort of printing stuff. And because it's on Thingiverse, all of that stuff is of course free.
Yeah. It's quite a bit on Yegi too, but I'll be talking about that when we get to mine next thing.
Oh,
But
Yegi doesn't host anything on their own. They are a search engine.
Sure, you're right. So usually linking back to Thingiverse, I guess. So I just liked using it specifically to find what I was looking for tonight.
Yeah. So one of the favorite things that I have for gaming accessories is some of the most basic stuff, like storage boxes, and specifically dice boxes, because when you give nerds this unrestricted power to make anything they want into a dice box, they come up with some creative options. Like sword dice boxes are real common. One of my favorites that I found is this like really cool hammer dice box. So if you've got a cleric or a dwarf, G Dud has put together several themed dice boxes, and this hammer is their magnum opus by far.
That's cool. Does it screw in?
Yeah. The dice go into little slots along the inside, like basically a sleeve, and that sleeve screws into the bottom of a big old fantasy hammer. And
that is so cool and so flavorful.
Right.
But it's only one set. It's only one set of dice.
It's your favorite set of dice. How many dice do you bring to the table as a player of G?
I play casters, dude. I bring
Fair enough. Well, in that case, you're going to want a dice box a lot like I had one here that this player's handbook dice box, which is emphasis on box. It is really just a book that is shaped like the player's handbook from 3.0 edition of D&D.
Yeah, that's got with seriously third edition vibes.
And it's got like built-in gears so that to unlock the box, you twist the sword to the side and it unlocks the box. And you could fit so many D6s in this baby.
So yeah, that would be more my speed. Like I gotta have like, a fireball set, and then like if because I play a lot of obscure rule sets and stuff, and so there's like a Sonic Lance spell that does D8s. I need a whole set of those. Yeah, I gotta have my dice. I have this really cool carved City of Seven Seraphs box that I got during my Kickstarter campaign from Casey Rift, and it's really, really cool, but I can barely fit like about 12th level. I run out of room in it.
So, oh boy, yeah, because the problem with like you play stupidly high level games of D&D,
yes,
and Pathfinder,
yes, we do.
So like, how many, like 60 D6 would not be unheard of as to something you would need to slap down on the table.
I mean, that's pretty out there. Like we're talking like a disintegrate or something, and the other thing is like if you're getting dice tools that time like that high, you're usually like twinning and something or doubling something, so you're probably only needing about like 30.
Okay.
But yeah, we like when we get the sets of dice, because James likes to get the standard set and the 12 D6 set, and then we have to get the little 36 D6 minis,
right?
Because he is the rogue and he wants like the big pile of like sneak attack dice, rolling out there with every attack. So.
And for that, but if you're a war gamer, like if you're playing like Warhammer or Age of Sigmar or Kings of War, like I have seen a need, like a rear charge from a Night Horde in Kings of War. And it's like, okay, that's 126 attacks. Yikes. I need 126 D6s. And while, yes, you could use a dice rolling app at that point to save yourself table speed, that kind of takes the fun out of it. Sure. I think that I make podcasts for games. I was a computer programmer professionally. I just think that you lose a little something when you could give too much of the tabletop away to technology. So where everybody draws that line is a choice up to them. But I love the shiny math rocks. I want to hear them go click clack.
Yeah, the clatter. Got to hear that clatter.
Yeah, and if I do get that rear charge with my Night Horde, I want to put that ginormous shotgun bucket of dice on the table and just watch my opponent's face drip with dread as I just count out way more hits than they have hit points 10 times over.
Nice.
That might be a little mean though. So
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that case, you do need some of the bigger like jugs. Like some of my favorites are some dice boxes you can find that are like it looks like a giant D20, but magnets keep one of this triangle sets. So you just unscrew it and it's just like a big old cup full of dice.
So we have these wood ones, and I
Uh-huh.
imagine there's a 3D printing analog
Yes.
because it's
Mhm.
got like a, I want to say it's the top pentagon part that comes up, but the magnets are really strong in them, and they like can get your hand. I'm not going to try to play with it right now because it's going to be a bad scene. I'm going to snap my finger in it.
Yeah, please don't snap your finger off during a podcast. I very much want you to keep your fingers.
Oh, I would keep my finger. I would probably lose my family friendly rating verbally.
Right. There's lots of like, just like little hexagon cups for a set of dice. My personal favorites are like the sleeve versions of these where it just lines the dice up in a row. And then you have room for a pencil, or often there's designs that have room for a like a miniature to be tucked in there.
Yep.
Those are
I've seen
always
some
fun.
really cool like character setups, particularly for 5e, where it has like a little light version of your character sheet. It has your dice, it has a spot for your mini and a pencil.
Right.
I've seen some really cool kind of like case setups for that are 3D printable.
And one of my personal favorite ones to look at is this one from Acolugton 519, which is a little dice box that has a collapsible dice tower that folds up inside of it with your dice. And so you have this nice little tiny dice tower to roll your dice down into the dice tray, and also all the room you need to store your dice in there. And you know what? That's just neat. I'm
That
normally
is
not
super
a
cool.
dice tower person myself, but
Me either,
that
but
was
that's
really
neat.
yeah. If one of my players pulled that out and James bonded that at the game table, I would be impressed.
Wonder how hard it is to build.
I hear it's not a hard print at all. I have a few of my friends that have actually printed that one.
Huh. Well, it looks pretty neat. Like maybe sort of a spiral riser situation, or I don't know. And if you're just hearing us, it's a spiral staircase that spins up out of the box. It looks pretty sweet.
And speaking of dice towers, oh my god, there's so many dice towers. If you want to bring dice towers to, there's first lots of fun ones. I really like this clear spiral gothic dice tower from LAU 85 on Thingiverse.
Okay.
It's a free download. And then there's been many Kickstarters with some really fantastic looking dice towers that would easily double as game table terrain. If you want to get those. And so if you want a really fantastic dice a dice tower, this is 3D printing has you covered and then some.
Yeah.
Any personal favorites there?
I definitely saw some Elven Tower ones that looked really, really cool. I am with you. I generally wouldn't normally get a dice tower. My biggest worry would be I would want to use them as terrain, and I'd have players be like popping it off and playing with it while we were gaming.
Yeah, especially if you had like your mini set up and then there's all of a sudden the D20 rocks down and
shoots out and knocks it off it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I love. Okay, no, I don't love dice towers, and I have yet to see a dice tower that will not occasionally rocket a dice to the other side of Mars just when it gets a quirk in it.
It's true. I've seen some that have some pretty cool, like there was one that has a graveyard at the base of it, and so when the dice like rolls out, it hits into the tombstones and kind of ricochets around and like stops. It can't quite get out of the graveyard. That one was pretty slick. But yeah, I've definitely seen a lot that are just like shooters, like it's like a little cannon. And considering we had a problem with weaponized marshmallows at our gaming table for a while, I don't need to encourage any other projectile instruments.
And you mentioned player sheets.
Yeah, they're kind of like a little mini box. It's got like I'm sorry, I don't have a link for one right now because I don't usually play 5e unless, well, sometimes I do. Anyway, I haven't done a lot of it recently. It has like a little mini, like has the stat boxes, and I think a lot of people just use like a wet erase or whatever for all the stat stuff, and then oftentimes they're class specific. I've also seen like some wooden analogs that are very, very nice as well, but yeah, the 3D print ones look pretty customizable. The one I liked the most had little droppable tokens for your spell slots. So you could like basically prep your spells, like how many sorcerer slots you still had open, and then you would just pull the little chunk out and it would be kind of like a little mana bar.
Right.
That was pretty slick. I liked it.
So it's not. I've seen a lot of things like that for board games and war games for score tracking or just like for character sheet. Like there's this one for Gaslands from Tabletop Terrain that I like a lot that just keeps all the stats that would be for your car when you're playing Gaslands, which is a great little tabletop game where you basically are very much encouraged to go find your favorite Hot Wheel and then convert the crap out of it to make it into your Mad Max style death machine and then go race it and or destroy all the other cars. So I do recommend you check out Gaslands if you ever want to play a really fun mini game that won't break your budget.
Yeah, looking at that though, I immediately think of investigator cards from like all the Arkham games and stuff.
Exactly.
Or Massive Darkness would also have very similar setups. Yeah. And I bet you there's some customized ones, especially with Massive Darkness 2 just coming out.
Oh, absolutely. Just whatever your if it's a popular-ish board game, go into my mini factory. Not my mini factory. I keep saying them. Go into Thingiverse and just type in the name of the game. Like if you just type in Gloomhaven, there's like pages upon pages upon pages of Gloomhaven 3D printable objects. Like one this really cool what they call a player dashboard where you slot in your character card and it keeps your spells and all your actions.
This is the sort of thing I've seen for 5e too. I've definitely seen little boxes like this.
Yeah, so this is just for Gloomhaven, and it's this little like you slot the actual character card into it so that it has a little view for your character art, little place for your money and tokens, status effects are up on the thing, all your combat deck is slotted there in like a blackjack dealer style slider so that you can pull your attacks down, and then you've got your various action cards just sort of slot to the side of it, and it just looks glorious. And just about every popular game is going to have something like this. If you're a Warhammer player, 40K, Age of Fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy, any of those, absolutely they have thousands of things like this on there. If you're like Gloomhaven or Arkham or any popular board game or dungeon crawler, anything Fantasy Flight ever thought about is got it's. If you're a Magic the Gathering
there's where I was gonna go. I was holding that one back.
Oh my God, is there so much stuff for Magic the Gathering?
That was what I was going to talk about next, because I am a huge Magic nerd, and we don't talk about much on this at all because I didn't really look, right? But oh my goodness, I actually delved into it. Custom deck boxes, stackable +1/+1 counter setups. I don't know if you remember that WizKids very briefly did a blind box tokens that were like little minis. Well, there are so many cool setups for printing them, and that was a problem with the blind boxes. Is like if I go off with an angel deck and I'm in go off, I get like 114 angels, right? I am not going to pull blind boxes or sleeves to get random minis to get 114 angels. But as we know, I get an angel mini or a bear token. I have a bear deck that creates bears. That is going to be, I could fill tray after tray and have as many of those little buggers as I needed. And there is something different about having that physical representation. It's much more showy, I guess, especially if you're going to like an LGS or an FNM or whatever. But super impactful, fun. If you really want that jaw drop on when your mega combo goes off. And similarly, they had a couple other token setups and Kaladesh. This was something I was going to call it very specifically. They introduce things in Magic all the time that there's an energy token in Kaladesh where it doesn't exist in the game. And you have to track it somehow. And a lot of tournaments aren't letting you do dice setups anymore. So this was a tray where you could either use dice if you were playing friendly casual, or you could put tokens in it, but it was a player facing tray that each person had their little energy bucket. And that was super cool. Like there's no product for Magic that represents that. Same thing with Planeswalker emblems, unless you use one of those token cards, which you have to also pull blind from a booster pack or go buy from an extras bin, right? It's just so cool to have these tools to represent these things that they keep introducing to the game. They also introduced tokens for flight and hexproof and trample. And now that you can just create a little specific, this is a trample token, and it's actually on your card, and it looks way cool, and people know exactly what it is, as opposed to just trying to track that with nothing, right? I believe in the sets where Ikoria added that first, if you had Ikoria, you could they did a little punch card where you could punch out a little, but you had to tear them up.
Right. Oh my gosh. Oh.
And then you had to put them on them. And then the thing is, though, that was Ikoria where they introduced, the counters on the creatures for their special abilities. But since then, they've kept that mechanic, but there's not any new cards. So if you join post Ikoria, or you got a new deck that maybe put hexproof or trample tokens or whatever it is, counters on your things, they're not there, and you don't have the little punch card, even if you were willing to shred up your card and do it. And so again, this is something that's super cool and is actually needed to play the game, accurately, right? So I think it's a huge need to be served. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. First, on the bear tokens, first, there are multiple people that have made bear tokens, so that's nice that you have a choice in your bear. I like that in a lot of the tokens, they actually have modeled onto the tokens like their power and toughness. Like it's bear and it's standing on top of a 2/2.
Yep. Yeah. And it's just, if you painted that, you could make it pop really cool and stuff. But yeah, that's one of the things they try to do with those blind box tokens. But again, you need 12 bears, and if you're gonna, it's gonna be so much easier to print them, and they're gonna be neater looking. So anyway,
and these deck boxes look so much better than any plastic with a thing printed on it. Like I'm looking at Toffee has trading card game deck boxes where it's like a squid sculpted into a castle, and it locks in place and has like a dangling chain token that you can latch it to. Like, wow. Yeah. Like I said, nerds with 3D software will make awesome things.
I saw a deck box that was a Lament box from Hellraiser. And I was like, I know so many decks I could put in that box, and it would live right up to it. Because there's decks, you pull them out and like people groan,
Mm-hmm.
A little Hellraiser box would be perfect.
And my inner collector appreciates these. It is from Genuous 81, and what they made are little card dividers that you can print off or paint in the different colors with the different symbols on them, so that you can, when organizing your cards, you have these nice little dividers in your boxes to keep them straight and know where they at.
Yeah, and you never have enough of those, because again, you could get them in the collector box sets and some gift box sets, but again, it's just something for some reason Magic doesn't make commonly available, and you can use so many of them, especially if you're organizing by set by color. Holy crap, you need a ton.
Right. And for any game, regardless of game, life counters useful. Playing D&D, life counters are great. You usually get a 3-digit one. For most games, a 2-digit life counter, that's great. There's so many choices, from dials to these little spin thingies. Just little. I like to use a set for my war games that just has little slots for the tiny 6mm dice to just fall into, so that I can like set the wounds that way using little red dice.
Right.
But I don't like to just set little dice next to my models in my games, because you confuse them. Wait, was that to hit? Was that a roll? It got knocked? So little cubbies that just have an arrow, and you just slot in the little tiny D6s. They're not going to get knocked around. They are pointing straight at the thing that they're indicating has the wounds, and they look really great. I love them.
Yeah, and speaking of knocking dice around, I don't know if you're aware, but tournaments for Magic actually discourage spin downs, which is weird because that's what they give you.
Right. The spin down was created by wizards for that purpose.
Right, but now you're actually required to have like a different media, either a tracking app or a score pad or something in paper, whatever. But these, if they're flat and they're not jostleable, they would be more appropriate, right? And they actually encourage you to track your opponents too. So having 2 of them would be easier, if you could just pop them out your printer or whatever you needed to.
Lots of options. You have an infinite amount of toys at your disposal. All you need to do is feed it weed eater string.
Right.
So another aspect is just keeping my stuff organized. I kind of hinted at this with the last one, but like if you ever search for like a board game, you've been to the hall and they have like MDF inserts to organize your game boxes. Well, it turns out you can 3D print those. So like I'm showing off a Wingspan insert. If you like the game Wingspan from Arcanus, also this one has a ton of 3D printed extras to beef that game up a bit. Including it. But like you take out the default what's inside the game box, and it's basically little compartments that are designed to exactly hold all the components for whatever game it is, the cards in nice little slots, all the tokens usually in color-coded little slots, everything just easy to access. I have, like, for Gloomhaven specifically, there's a ton of those options too, and I actually paid, before getting a 3D printer, I paid over $100 for a box organizer for Gloomhaven before.
Yikes.
And so if I had my printer, that would just be $20 worth of filament, not even that, in a good weekend, and I would have had more control over it. So whatever your favorite game, like if you are all about Arkham, there is absolutely multiple choices of 3D printable box inserts to keep all your tokens in order. And let's be honest, for some of those Fantasy Flight games, that's required, or else you spend half the game setting just it up by wondering where all the tokens are.
I remember starting.
I am well past that very tiny jewelry Ziploc baggy life. I am not doing that again.
Yeah, starting a whole night where you have the first thing you do at game night is pass out all the cards and have everybody sort them.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, so I think that's a good representation. There's still lots of like little trackers, like for any game. Like this is a Gloomhaven mana tracker, which makes that life so much easier, because that's a little thing you have to track globally as various things happen in the game. And it's not fun and it's not easy. And so lots of little trackers, organizers, tokens, like specific curated miniature sets for popular board games is a common one. It's like, here's like a bunch of, like, you don't just use the skeletons from the Goonies. 3D print these. We modeled this skeleton to look just like the box art version. If you are a Hero Quest player, you are spoiled for choices out there. Warhammer Quest 2 and lots of games there. So just
spell templates for various games. Like I can't say how useful that is enough. I still wouldn't mind some more spell effects though. If anybody's listening for your Patreon,
Comet Lord can't carry us all.
Right. Although if you're looking for spiritual weapons, he can carry you pretty darn far there. Because every set has at least 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's things we are missing. So if you know of any awesome accessories or add-ons for games or game enhancements that we haven't talked about, enter it into the comments or hit us up on Facebook or at podcast@PrintYourGames and let us know about that. We will definitely share any fantastic recommendations you all give us. And with that, I think we are nearing time. So, Kristen, is there anything you want to shout out to this week?
There is. And it's funny because I was talking about them for objective markers, but this is a 2-parter.
Right.
First off, you don't see this a lot. And so 3D Hexes has floating island terrain. And like, I don't know if you've bought any or seen any of the Warhammer stuff, but that stuff is expensive. And this particular set, they did a floating island 1, floating island 2. It's gorgeous. It's massive. At first I was like, oh, is this like scale? I thought like, oh, it's just going to be like a tiny little thing. No, if you can see, there's a little teeny, he actually got Duncan Shadow to give him a couple STL files. And those are Duncan Shadow, like medium-sized minis to give you scale on those. So
oh my gosh, these are humongous.
They're huge. And so Super cool, super affordable. If you're in the tribe, you get 40% off. So I think it takes it down to actually maybe as cheap as the normal release price, by the way, because it's like a 15, I think. So it ends up being around 8 or 9. But yeah, and it's that for the monthly. But what I really wanted to point out, because this brought up a different need, and this isn't just for floating island terrain. This is for any flying. If you're printing the big airships from Skies of Sordain, any elevated levitating terrain, getting good transparent supports. And I see people do all sorts of stuff. I see people use, like mods cut from soda bottles or whatever.
Right.
But there actually is a company in New York, and I think I sent you a link for it, called Canal
Plastics. Yeah.
Yep. They let you specify the diameter of your translucent rod. It can, I think they base it in feet. You can get them pretty long. You could obviously then saw it yourself if you wanted to, but most of them, I think about a foot or a 2-foot rod would be pretty good. And you can get them completely solid, which is one of the things, like getting a completely solid acrylic translucent stand, like on Amazon, usually is about 3 times as expensive as the prices these guys are asking.
Right.
So like if you need a big, transparent support or a couple of them for a large mini or a floating island or whatever it is, they look really clean. Super excited. I have someone ordered to do one of these island sets because I think it'd be really neat. Anyway, even on 3D Hex's tribe, they were talking about how it's really expensive to find them and other ways you could do it. And so this is something that they didn't even know about that managed to source. So
nice.
Plastics. I'm super excited by it.
Yeah. I have been struggling with that because I've tried clear resin printing and it's never clear enough.
Yep.
If you've got some tips, let us know on that one. I know Kristen would definitely appreciate some clear resin tips.
Well, I love it. I love the colored stuff for doing red for blood capes, like those blood capes from Arc Villain. Super cool. But yeah, when you want it for something like this, where you want it to be minimized or a flying base or whatever, it's hard.
Yeah, and I've been the other go-to I've been using is like getting like plastic wineware for weddings that has like you can get it like where it's meant to like screw the top of the glass into the stem so they can package it really efficiently, but you can just not use the top of the wine glass and then screw it into the bottle, like just use it as a stick, as just a clear stick. But those are not exactly sturdy.
No, they're not.
No, and they will go. And so I've been having to live that brass rod life, which is very sturdy, but isn't actually invisible. It's not clear. It's very clearly a brass rod holding this thing up.
Yeah. And I think if you're going to go all the pain of creating it and printing it, I think a translucent would be cooler if you could find it. So
yeah, I do glad that you found this because I have been struggling at finding good clear rod sources, and goodness knows. The other thing I've been doing is just trying to not like creative basing so that like the left wing is just basically barely brushing a tree and that's what's holding the entire model in the air, or like some of the high elf stuff from this is a quick shout out to what Raging Heroes is doing. They're doing next month they're doing High Elf set 2 because they hate my wallet and want all my money and so force me to reprint as many elves as I can.
They own me, so yeah.
So they've got they got these floating islands in that set, and the waterfalls are holding the islands up, and that's a clever trick. But but sometimes you need a clear rod. So this is a great find. Thanks, Kristen.
Well, they also do a lot of the ribbon work too at Raging Heroes, where it's like these diaphanous ribbons, but there's like 6 of them, so they're holding the fig up. I think that's a pretty slick trick too. So
yeah. Or the vampire classic, my cape goes for days.
Yes. Or my bat's wing is just barely skimming the surface of the water. Yeah. Do you have any shout outs to your own this time?
I want to shout out to Vivictus. They have been Vivictus has always been one of my favorite little 3D printing companies where they used to be very role play scenes. So they would like come up with a cool encounter idea, such as brigands kidnapping a noble on the Crossroads Bridge, and you would get like the bridge and like the brigands and like the cart they were in and the little cage they're trying to get the young princess shoved into, and great little sets, like a good little mix of terrain and models and some hero figs. And if you're a role-playing gamer, they were always a good deal. But lately they've been sort of courting that Frostgrave life, and so they've been putting out modular kits. Their modular cultist this month look great, and they're doing guards next month, so that's going to be great if you need any sort of militia or city guards or just some rugged individuals. And they do it, and what they're doing right now is like a lot like what Titanforge is doing. So a small set of heroes, hero figs or main character figs that are not modular, and one really weird looking demon girl in this last batch, and then a modular set to like for your books and stuff. So this month it's cultists, next month it'll be guards, last month it was like various like cool soldiers and mercenaries and stuff. And I'm just kind of impressed with what they've been doing lately, so I want to give them a shout out and say, hey, I like it.
Yeah, you turned me on to those cultists, and I just got the set from Loot, and then I've got a back set from Comet Lord. So I'm like, do I need them? But the modular, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's 5 times more figs than they're actually showing.
Yeah, and here's the trick they're doing is they're doing modular at the shoulder joint, so that helps a lot too. So it's wrist joint, shoulder joint, head. That's the modular bits. All their modulars are back compatible,
kind of like
so
Artisan
more
Guild.
Modular, kind of like Artisan Guild, but a little bit more, because Artisan Guild doesn't do modular heads.
Sure.
So this means that you can have weird, like whatever species you want with whatever armaments you want. Basically, your MMO shopping. What armor, species, and weapon combination do I want? And the more of these modular sets you get, the more options you get in the long run. So those cultists just can get added to the previous set stuff. They can get added to the future stuff, and this does sort of lock you into like just keeping that subscription going and
getting my face here,
every
right?
month.
Like,
I'm getting lots of anger looks right now. Sorry about that.
Well, we were just talking about having Raging Heroes already having my money, then so I don't know if I can. Gosh, I don't know if I can do a Patreon number.
Yeah. Also, you don't slap down light when you slap down for a tribe or a Patreon. You go in for the year
if they let me, but most of the tribes don't. So
really?
I'm spared that. But yeah, on Patreon more, I do tend to do annuals if I really like a set or two. Just because there's always that baseline. So if I cut way back, I still have that, like 5 or 6 extras come in, which is nice. But cutting way back, I should do that. That's gonna happen.
And that will do it for this episode, everybody. I have very much appreciate all of you who have tuned in and listened to this. If you have any comments, do leave them into the comment section. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on a podcast, we would appreciate a 5-star rating on iTunes, because I think we're 5-star podcast. If you disagree, but hey, we would very much appreciate that any comments, like, subscribe, sharing you do helps get this podcast out there, helps support this, helps us grow, helps us keep a community going and getting more people printing their games. So until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Lost Spheres, and don't forget your screen protector.
Oh, small pause bonus. Did you see that Uncle Jesse just did a whole episode on screen protectors?
No, I didn't. That's cool.
Yes, go check it out, because the new set of like custom cut screen protectors just for printers, so you can pick your printer and it has all the holes cut out, and it sounds great. They're like $10 for 2, so they're a little bit pricier than my laptop screens that I'm buying. But
I wonder if it's the ones I got, or is it M5 or something? Yeah, so that's the ones I got. I love them so much.
Yeah, and the Photon Mega, or not Mega, Max, the Photon Max comes with a screen protector.
What?
Yes, this needs to become standard. Your printers need to come with screen protectors.
It's almost like my blazing invective emails about not getting one and ruining red.
Especially with these, like, this is the could you like imagine how much it's going to cost to replace that 13.6-inch screen if you screw it up on your first print?
I can't even. That's
oh my
horrifying.
Gosh.
Probably just cheaper to buy a new one.
All right. We'll see y'all next time, everybody.